Welcome to the All Clear Firefighter Wellness Podcast, where grit meets growth and excuses get burned away. This is about mental, physical, and personal growth. Light your fire within. Let's get after it. Today on Behind the Sirens, a AVFIS of North Carolina series, we're talking with safety culture and leadership specialist Dr. Candace McDonald from NASA. Today we're going to see what the fire service can learn from space-level risk management. Next on All Clear.
Welcome to Behind the Sirens, a AVFIS of North Carolina series. This is where we sit down and talk straight about leadership, risk, and the stuff that actually affects the fire and emergency service world. Whether you're brand new or you've been doing this a long time, it's about giving you and your crew the insight to make better calls, stay protected, and go home with confidence.
So today I've got with me a very special guest. I've got Dr. Candace McDonald, who works for NASA. Boy, I've never had a NASA scientist on here before. I do have to ask a question before I even let you talk.
Okay, I'm ready for it.
This is a question every 12-year-old boy wants to know.
Okay.
Is it as cool working at NASA as we think it is?
NASA's an absolute dream place to work. It is a great place to work. There are so many cool things to see, and just the things that NASA does to support the economy and obviously the space program and commercial aviation. It's just a great place to be.
Okay, I had to ask that question. My son put me up to that. But
yes.
Also,
and the best part is in my building, the moon rock lives in my building. So when I'm having a bad day, I can go over and visit the moon rock.
So where are you based out of?
So I actually work at the John Glenn Research Center in Cleveland, Ohio. A lot of people don't realize that there's a NASA in Ohio. And what I tell everybody is if you've watched the Avengers, the very beginning of the Avengers, was filmed at NASA in our Sandusky location in Ohio.
I got you. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. All right. So this episode obviously is sponsored by VFIS, and there's some great questions because you're a specialist at safety culture. That I think that's your wheelhouse. So when we start talking about culture in the fire service, it's a very traditional business. I think you've probably experienced that yourself. But when we talk about culture, what specifically is safety culture, and how does that kind of fit into what we do in the fire service?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I think of safety culture, it's the value placed on safety as demonstrated by people's behavior. It's the way that we perceive and value and prioritize safety throughout our organizations. It also reflects our commitment to safety at all the different levels and how our organization behaves when no one is watching, which is very important. So safety culture, it's an environment where everyone works safely. They feel comfortable communicating safety issues, and they can learn from mistakes and successes. They feel confident balancing the challenges and risk while keeping safe and just kind of focusing on what do I need to do to stay safe, and that they trust that safety is a priority. I think that's kind of when you look at the safety culture, it comes down to that.
One of my favorite quotes is from Mike Rowe. I'm sure you know who he is, who did Dirty Jobs.
Yes, I did a podcast with him. It was on his podcast.
Oh, I've had really famous people on mine. I listen to his every week. So he always used to jokingly say safety third. And, sometimes safety can become unsafe. I hate to say it, but I've been on construction sites. I work on the new construction side of, fire prevention these days. And, I've been on sites where the amount of PPE they wanted us to wear was so ridiculous. It almost made me feel like I was going to fall and get hurt when I didn't need gloves and everything else that we had to wear. But anyway, I digress.
Nope. And I think, again, those are some of the things that we do here when we talk about, because sometimes the answer, we know when something bad happens, obviously something new is going to roll out. Oh, we need to do this or that. And it's like, where's that balance, because we can't wrap everybody in bubble wrap and send them out. So we got to find that balance and make sure that everybody can go home safely.
Yep, I agree. And going home is the key at the end of the day for no matter what level of safety or what we do. But can you discuss the needed cultural changes that we see in the emergency services, particularly in the fire service these days?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we look at like line of duty deaths, we look at mishaps and close calls, when we start to see trends, then we know there needs to be a change in emergency services. Each terrible incident that our organization or another organization faces, it can be used to help someone else's loved one get home safely. And I'm going to kind of take us back for those of you that know Dr. Burton Clark. So for 20 years, he's been pushing wearing seatbelts. That was his big thing because we knew that like when firefighters were getting into accidents and they weren't belted, there was a lot of loss of life and injury. So that was his big push. Let's get everybody take the seatbelt pledge, get them buckled up. And so does it make a difference? Well, if we look at the data that shows crashes involving those wearing seatbelts and those who are not, we do know it makes a difference. The injury rate when we look at that. So a department, getting to a point where everyone's buckled up was a needed culture change. It was something that we needed to do. And then kind of shifting over, I look at my good friend and mentor, Mr. Steve Austin, and the Cumberland Valley Volunteer Firefighters Association. They lost a member of their own association who was a volunteer working on the roadway because we know the roadway is the most dangerous place that we operate. And when that individual passed, Mr. Austin brought together leaders from all over the country, these great minds, and he says, we've got to fix this. We've got to do something, which led to which led to Cumberland Valley starting what I like to call the responder safety movement. And that's where and they kind of pushed the whole traffic incident management thing. That's where Tim started, keeping us all safe on the roadway. And again, that was developed to keep people safe while they're out there. Can we do anything about the D drivers that we like to call D drivers, the drunks, the drowsy, the distracted? Unfortunately, we are still struggling to change their behavior. So we have to say, what can we do differently to change our culture so our folks can go home? And we are seeing where people have their apparatus parked properly, using Tim, and people are striking the apparatus, but they're not killing the first responders. So that's a good thing. So that, again, was a change that had to happen. And even within that movement of educating people on highway safety, this started out as a boots on the ground effort. They were going to fire departments, teaching in person, going to conferences, teaching. And then technology came along. So they even had to change their own culture, and they now deliver that online to meet today's needs. So even the culture within the culture sometimes changes. So we've got to change constantly to meet, the needs of today. So, I think that's kind of when we're looking at the change, we just got to be open to how do we get there? What do we need to change?
Well, I know, like with the vehicular component, I know the professional department I work for, we've lost quite a few apparatus. We're not going to say lost, but we did lose at least one. But we've had significant damage to vehicles on the interstate, which runs through our jurisdiction. The guys are doing everything right, but like you said, it's just those drivers that don't do things right, that don't pay attention, and they cause a problem. And Tim's definitely works. All of those strategies are very effective, and I can speak firsthand for that one because we've never had anybody injured, severely because of that, because the plan works.
Yeah.
But when we talk about, safety culture in the fire service, what's the biggest driving factor behind the behaviors of a lot of firefighters and first responders? What drives how they act, I guess, when it comes to safety? I know some of it's not good, some of it is good.
Yeah. And I think that's, looking at that is so important because we know that a culture that is just balances the need for discipline when warranted, and then it also rewards when earned, so to speak. You know what I mean? We are making sure we're rewarding our people. And then when things aren't going away, we have to take some corrective action. People clearly understand acceptable and unacceptable behaviors. I mean, generally people know what's right and what's not. So there's got to be a sense of fairness in how business is conducted for everyone. It's important when we're looking at creating a just culture, so to speak, that it's just we're not shooting the messenger for bringing up a safety concern. So you'll hear, a lot of times, especially new recruits, they'll learn something at a training, or they'll come right out of the recruit academy, and they'll say, hey, and they'll point something out that might not be done safely, and they learn this. And then some of the seasoned members may just rip into them like, I've been doing this for 20 years. I don't need you to tell me how to do the job. So, how do we fix that where folks feel comfortable bringing that forward when they have that safety concern? And I think having a reporting culture will help drive those positive behaviors. In a reporting culture, that's when everyone is encouraged to be able to report those safety concerns. And there's this atmosphere of trust that could exist between leadership and the employees, with the employees knowing that it's important, that information can be channeled up to them and why it's important, and that leadership is going to act upon that information appropriately, because somebody should never be afraid to speak up, because it could save a life. It can make the difference. So, and I think sometimes we are our own worst enemy, because again, I see this all the time, and especially when you're, work with some of these departments that struggle with retention issues, and these new recruits, come on, and they're just so excited, and they have this passion and these ideas. And then, the seasoned members sometimes are not always the kindest when, the new member speaks up. So we got to be careful of that. And then we also know when things don't go as planned, we have to have a learning culture, so to speak. We can learn from our successes and we can learn from our mistakes. So in a learning culture, we collect, we assess, we share information, both formally and informally. And that includes continuing education programs, trainings, and just having conversations. We learn from our experiences and we apply that. One thing that we started doing at NASA is that, I meet with my team once a week. I'll pull everybody together, and we'll say, okay, what events did we have last week? And we'll talk about them. Hey, what went right? What went wrong? And these are just small events. They already, these are just your typical daily calls. We've learned so much from doing that. It's like, oh, we can do this differently. We can improve this, or, just kind of, it gives everybody an opportunity to kind of like reflect and have those conversations.
That kind of goes back to a personal mission of mine. We run the North Carolina Firefighter Cancer Alliance. It's kind of the parallel organization to the All Clear podcast. And VFIS has supported us tremendously in a lot of the things we've done. But, when we started talking about cancer in the fire service 10 years ago, people didn't want to hear it, particularly the older guys. The younger ones were a little bit more, open to listening. And now in 2026, people know that cancer is a problem.
Yep.
Have we fixed it? No. Are we going to cure it? No. Probably not, but we have learned what steps to take. And now that those younger ones are in leadership roles, it's much more widely accepted. And there is a lot of truth to what you're saying. But now, what are some of the areas that you found that have the most resistance when it comes to safety?
Well, when change comes, resistance tends to come. People don't like change. People struggle with change because they are comfortable with what they know. And I completely get it. I do. I've been one of those people at times. I like to tell this story. So I grew up in the 80s. I loved playing Pac-Man. Like, that was my thing. My dad and I would go to the local diner. I'd get my quarters and we would play Pac-Man. So I was traveling to speak at a fire conference, and I had my teenage son with me. And we stopped at a truck stop. And I got so excited because there was a Pac-Man machine in the truck stop. So I'm like, you got some quarters, let's play. So we're playing, and I'm like, look how good I am at this, And I'm like, it all came back, showing my son. And he says to me, we could get this for the Xbox, and then we could have a family game night. I'm like, oh, let's do that. I cannot wait. So we order the Pac-Man game, get it for the Xbox. I get a flip chart out. I'm like, I'm going to have the scoreboard. We, have everything ready for this family game night. So everybody is in the living room. We get out there, and they all whipped my butt. Do you know why?
What? Because you overplanned?
No, because I failed to evolve. The controller was different. I didn't learn the new technology.
No joystick, no win.
Exactly. So because the controller had changed, I had not adapted to the new technology.
Gotcha.
I was stuck in the past. So I didn't have the skills or the knowledge to succeed. So it taught me a really good lesson about why resistance and not learning something new can cause us to fail. So that was, again, I think when I think about that, it was like because I used to say, I don't want to play the Xbox. I grew up with the Atari days and things like this. And then when I was so excited for this whole Pac-Man thing, but I failed to evolve. I failed to learn something new. And then I felt so like, I don't know how to do this. And this is something I've known for years how to do. And I think that kind of goes with other changes. A lot of times we have seasoned people that are so good at what they do. And then we bring something new in and it's like, wait, I don't know how to do this. I don't feel like a master of my trade anymore.
And there's so much to unpack on that one besides Pac-Man. But it's when you have somebody that's really good at their job and you throw that one new thing at them, we're going to decon our gear, or we got to park the truck this way. When we do that, it can really mess with them. And like I said, the need for ongoing education, it can't be spoken enough for it. Like you mentioned the Tims earlier, those types of things. I know there were people that were like, oh man, I'm used to doing this. I want to park this way. This is where the cone should go. But we've seen the payoff from it, unfortunately, at loss many times. And, in my side with fire prevention, we always say the fire code is a book based on the losses. Every code is because somebody did something stupid, is what we say. And the sad part is a lot of people don't want to push and learn and adapt. And I think it's very good that you bring that up. And for our folks that are listening today, if something's presented to you, don't resist it. Just it's okay to question it, and maybe a way to do it maybe a little bit better, or make an adjustment. But the big thing is always have an open mind.
Yes. And so I have to tell you, I did not have an open mind. And so do you know what I did? I went out and I bought a Pac-Man cocktail table with the joystick, the old one. I was so excited, brought it home, and the kids didn't want to play. They're like, no, we're going to play the Xbox. So again, what I wanted to do was engage with my team at home, so to speak.
Yep.
Bought this, and they wanted nothing to do with it because I was still stuck in the past.
Well, you know how to split the difference. You buy a joystick for the Xbox, and that's exactly what you...
exactly.
No, I've been there. And that's the same thing with the fire service. Sometimes it's like, hey, this is the best way to do it. No, it's not the best way to do it, but it's a great way to do it. And you just have to meet people halfway, and you got to be creative to the answer. Very good.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things, if leadership doesn't buy into whatever the safety topic is, typically it fails. But what are some areas that leadership could focus on if they wanted to kind of maybe start adjusting their organization to be progressive when it comes to safety culture?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what I've learned as a leader is that we need to sell to our stakeholders, and our stakeholders are internal people, the people, and it's not just your firefighters. It's also the people in the office, your auxiliary, whoever is within your group that is involved. Those are your stakeholders. It's important to involve all of them. But we need to sell our stakeholders on the why of the change so that they can believe in the cause. Instead of stating that you're mandating somebody to take this training, tell the story of why it's important. Share a line of duty death story or a mishap from another organization so that they know that you're trying to teach them something that could save their life or keep them safe. Get your stakeholders involved in the change process so that they feel ownership. A lot of times when change happens, people resist it because they have no control. But if we give them an opportunity to be part of the process of helping us change the culture, they're going to start to feel some ownership, and they'll be an advocate for that change because you cannot do it alone. It's also about your attitude as a leader. If you're negative about the change, your people are going to catch that negativity bug, and it's not going to go over well.
One of the most powerful things that I've seen, or maybe it's always been around, but I'm just starting to take notice of it. Every time there's a new program, a new process, a new whatever, you always have, where we are, a train the trainer. So, hey, we got somebody that's going to come in. We're going to teach all y'all how this works, and we want you to teach it. And when you give that ownership over to the people that are truly interested and passionate in it, a lot of times it goes much further in making the changes stick.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives them a purpose. It
Yep.
gives them they have some ownership, and it makes them a valuable tool for your change process.
No doubt, no doubt. But when we start talking about, the changes and things like that, who's ultimately responsible for safety in the fire service, whether it be, the rookie on the truck all the way to the chief? Who's ultimately responsible, and how should that how should that look from day to day?
Yeah, you know what? Everyone has to do their part. Everyone has a responsibility, regardless of their status, their rank, or even their occupation within the department. All employees, they have to actively participate in safety, so that they can accomplish the organization's goal. It's just, the bottom line, everybody has a part. So the key is having engaged leaders and employees who demonstrate they value safety so that everybody gets involved. Um, as a leader, if you slack on safety, your people will see that. It sends a message that it's okay. So we've got to own our mistakes when we make them, and make sure that we're sending the right message to our folks. Because again, we all have a part in making sure that everybody goes home safely, that everybody goes home to their loved ones. And it starts with the leader kind of setting that from the top.
We'll return after these messages.
Wake up slow, grab your mug, it's time to roll. All clear coffee, fire in your soul, brewed by firefighter, strong and true. One bean at a time, we're looking out for you. From first sip through your last call of the day, fuel your fight, keep the drag away. Get your bag now, don't wait, don't stall. Allclearpodcast.com. Hey! We got beans for all.
So the leadership is definitely an important thing, no doubt at all about that from what you're saying. But how do we reinforce that safety mindset? Maybe it's through the leadership training or, officer development. What are some ways that we can, reinforce that mindset so that it really sticks when it counts? When the rubber meets the road, when we got the fire, when we got the wreck, how do we make it stick?
That's a great question. So one of the things that I found a lot of times what we do is when we onboard somebody or bring somebody new on, we start throwing all this paperwork. Here's our policy for this. Here's our SOP for this. Read this over. But we don't sit down and do the why with them. We don't sit down and explain to them the why. And so one of the things that I really tell people is your folks need to know your SOPs. Because again, your SOPs are designed to keep your folks to safe on the ground and to know what to do. One of the things that we started to do at NASA is we started doing tabletop discussions of our SOPs once a week. So what I have asked is every week, a member of our team will lead a discussion over a specific SOP. I let them pick one. And then we kind of do a tabletop discussion. We go through it. And this helps ensure everyone knows the expectations to perform safely. And it gives our team an opportunity to ask questions. And in fact, even through those discussions, we've made updates to our SOPs. We're like, oh, this has changed. Since this SOP was written, like we're doing this differently. But we've kind of gotten back to the basics because again, what I've seen, kind of through the years is a lot of times people say, here's your SOPs, read these, be familiar. But if you sit down and do it as a group, as a training and really get into the why and talk about it, it makes a difference. And it starts to become part of a culture rather than, just, oh, here's another expectation we better follow. But really, this is why we follow it. And everybody's on the same page.
And the beautiful thing about that is when you kind of split it out like that, people will find what they're passionate about and they'll become your specialist on whatever the said topic is, whether it be high angle rescue or whatever. That's going to become their passion. And when you have a group of people that are passionate about different aspects of whether it be safety culture, SOGs, skills, whatever the case, it really sticks a lot harder. So that's sage advice on how we can address it through leadership. But, as we talk about all of the safety culture, we've talked about that kind of at length for the last few minutes. What would you say are some of the most pressing issues in the fire service when it comes to safety right now?
I think, I would say again, we know if you look at, some of the reports that come out, whether it be the fire service law, any of them, we still have an issue on the roadway, people getting struck, unfortunately.
Hmm.
Uh, that is a huge issue. So I can't stress enough for folks to um, look at taking TIM training. If you can't get people to a training, respondersafety.com has the free online courses that you can take and get your TIM certification. There's a lot of videos on there. There's actually on that website, there are different training modules that you can actually do for your training night. And I know there's different speakers that'll come out from different states and groups that'll come and do some of that type of training with your
Hmm.
group. I think that's important. I know you mentioned the cancer thing. I think, looking at those resources, continuing to educate our folks on why it's important to decon and having those resources available and just reminding people. And then also, we know we have some of our friends that are struggling with mental health issues, making
Yep.
sure we have those resources because that plays into the safety culture. If somebody is having issues, whether it be at home, at work, or whatever, and they're not getting a good night's sleep, that can lead to safety issues. I mean, because again, if their mind's somewhere else, they may not be paying attention. They might be distracted. So we need to connect people with the help that they need so that they can do their job safely, which then keeps everybody else safe. So and I always tell people, like, ask your team, what do you want to learn? What are your concerns? For my team, I've asked them, I've challenged all of them, hey, identify a guest speaker or a training to bring in, and we'll make it happen of a topic that's important to you. And so I think giving your folks some ownership to be able to allow them to go out and find a topic and bring in it is also something that's valuable.
Absolutely. That's all very good advice. And, I think we keep talking about ownership. I think that's been kind of a theme through all we've talked about tonight. When you have ownership and, the leadership buys in, it all goes smooth. Or if it doesn't go smoothly, at least the transition's easier.
Yes.
So that's buying the joystick for the Xbox, so to speak. You're kind of meeting it halfway. So, in conclusion, what would you like for us to walk away? If there's one thing that we can put into practice with our crews, our teams, our groups, tonight, maybe tomorrow when we go on shift, what is the one probably most important thing we can do?
Okay. So, I would say I might have two things, so I'll be
Okay.
a little greedy here. All right. So for my leaders, I would remind them that you set the stage on how your people will perform. Make sure they have the right scripts and the right direction to be successful so they go home safely. Bottom line, give them the tools that they need. For our the rest of our fire service and emergency services friends, don't be afraid to speak up when it comes to safety. That could be the difference between someone going home and not going home at all. It's also important for you to do your part to continuously learn how you can do your job safely. I will tell you, do not wait for the training to come to you. Go and find it, because at the end of the day, you're responsible for you. And so take the initiative and make sure that you get the training that you need so that you can be safe.
I like it. I like it. Approach it from two different sides, from leadership and for the guys on the line. So, if people want to find out more about you, Candace, where can they learn about you and your work and your team and all that fun stuff?
Yeah, so a little bit about me. So I do by day, I am the Chief of Protective Services at NASA at the John Glenn Research Center. And then by night, I am a volunteer firefighter EMT in Ohio. So I am happy to answer questions. My email is candace.m .mcdonald@nasa.gov. So feel free to reach out. Happy to answer any questions.
Well, I appreciate it, and we'll have more contact information in your biography and in the
Okay.
notes for this episode. I thank you so much for taking time to talk to us. It's always cool, and first person I've talked to from NASA, so that's a highlight for me too. So I appreciate it. So again, we always encourage people to look at how to build the best firefighter they can, through the skill sets. And safety is definitely a big one. But, we always close out every episode by saying, light your fire within.
All clear where the truth cuts through.
That's a wrap. All clear. Like, subscribe, and watch the video on YouTube. Do it now. Shout out to the North Carolina Firefighter Cancer Wellness Alliance, keeping our crews alive and strong. Hit allclearpodcast.com for every past episode. Grab your battalion newsletter. No spam, no selling, just the real deal. Stay sharp, watch your six, and we'll see you on the next call.